Hi everybody, I'm Noémi and this is the Simple Begiknits Podcast. So thank you for joining me. It has been quite some time since we've sat down to chit chat. So I haven't had that much time to sit down and knit, which makes it really weird right now. I feel like I don't know where to start. It's been so long. Well, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to finally have this time to just sit down, relax, and have a look at everything that's been going on and to share that with you and catch up and hear about what you've been working on. So let's get started. First off, I don't even remember where this was at the time that we last spoke, but I have finished my Cumulus Tee. Here she is in all her glory. I am so happy to have this done. I've knit this in Knitting for All of Pure Silk in the colorway Ice Blue. And it was a journey. I have a really fun time looking back at this tee because it just shows such a progression in my knitting journey. I started this tee back in November of 2022, before I had any idea about yarn weight and gauge. So I think I'd started knitting in August of last year, so 2022. And when I looked at the pattern by Petite Knit for the Cumulus Tee, I absolutely loved it. And I was looking at what I had on hand, and I had some We Are Knitters the cotton, and I thought that, well, if I have the right amount of yardage, that should be fine. So I started knitting that tee on the cotton, which I think is a DK weight yarn, worsted. Anyway, it's much thicker than the light fingering that is Knitting for Olive's Pure Silk, which is what is recommended in Petite Knit's pattern. So I had such a hard time knitting it in that yarn, and I eventually put it down and I was like, oh, maybe it's just the season. But like in actuality, it was just really hard to knit on such a thick yarn on such a small gauge. It's knitted for reference on 3mm needles. So it was just like such a dense fabric, and the cotton just has no give. And so to make increases, I felt like my needles were going to break every time. It was just a hot mess. So I put that project aside, and come spring, late spring, early summer, I decided, let's give this a go. And I picked it up and I looked at the pattern. I was like, what am I doing? I realized, why it was so bloody hard on my hands is because it was using such a thick yarn on such small needles, and it wasn't meant to be. So I frogged that back, and I had some pure silk in stash, so I cast on and started knitting. And then I realized I really didn't enjoy the feeling of the pure silk as I was knitting. I felt like it was, I was using my Chaogu stainless steel needles, and as I was knitting, it just felt like the yarn was almost catching on the needles, or like it wouldn't glide, which was so strange to me. So I then changed to some wooden needles. I had listened to a podcast earlier on talking about how wooden needles is actually really beneficial in some plant fibers like linen, and that knitting linen on wooden needles actually softens the fabric. So I was like, well, maybe that's the case for the pure silk as well. So I switched to my wooden needles, and it felt a little better, but I still really did not enjoy the knitting process. So I messaged a couple of other knitters who have talked about knitting the Cumulus Tee and absolutely loved it, and just be like, hey, like, is this your experience with it? Like, does it get better? What am I doing wrong? Is it my gauge? Like, am I knitting too tightly? What is it? And everybody was like, oh no, I had a lovely experience. I was just like, darn it. it's like, I'll just push through, because at that point I had maybe half of the V neck like shaping done. So I was like, maybe when I start knitting in the round it'll get better. So I kept going, and it was just really arduous. But once I finally got to knitting in the round, I don't know what happened. It just started like flying off my needles and going so much better. So maybe it's the purling I didn't enjoy, but at the end of the day, pushing through the V-neck part of the collar and getting to the body was way worth it. Once I got to the body, I felt like it took me almost as much time to knit, like, 30 centimeters of body. Took me as much time as knitting the yoke of this shirt, which is ridiculous. I feel like it should have been the other way around, but that was my experience. And then for the arms, at first I started on magic loop and I really didn't enjoy that feeling, so I switched to DPMs and it worked well. I don't have any laddering or any unevenness. A little bit of fluff. But yeah, here she is. I have been wearing it non-stop. I just love the color, love the fit, I love the fabric. And even a few days after I finished it and blocked it, I thought to myself, oh, you know what? I could make another one next year. If I decide to knit this again next summer, somebody please remind me how laborious it was at the beginning. That maybe if I have other projects that I should look into those a bit deeper before knitting this again. I love this tee. I'm glad I did it. I'm happy to have it in my wardrobe, but I think I need a little break before getting back into that again. But anyway, here she is. I love the fit. I love how relaxed it is. I love the color. I would love to have one in a cream or a black. I think would be really great and versatile. But for now, we'll enjoy this one, and we'll enjoy it for a long time before I try to pick up this project or another project like this again. So yeah, moving on to my second finished object of the season. Here she is. This is the Sauble Tank by Kurian Knits. It is her first pattern, and I was lucky to be picked as a test knitter. So the test knitting experience for this was so lovely. The test group chat on Instagram was really collaborative and really encouraging. It was a really wonderful group of people. And yeah, it was really cool. Everybody knitted in such like different colors. It was really inspiring for like future Sauble tanks perhaps. So yeah, so here she is. It's a DK weight yarn. So the cotton from Witre Knitters that I ripped out for my Cumulus Tee, I ended up repurposing for this tank. So it is a cropped boxy tank with a nice like lace kind of diamond shaped pattern all along the sides of the front and at the back, with some ribbed edges for the neck and the hem, as well as the armholes. I decided, is it going to focus? Yeah, I decided to knit mine in twisted rib, just because I felt like it would look a bit maybe more defined. Oh, come on, focus. There we go. So I decided to do twisted rib because I felt like it would bring, oh goodness, it would look a bit more defined and would kind of go well with the lace detailing. I'm really happy I did it. I love this tank. I'm not much of a cropped shirt kind of person, but I have recently, well, not recent. I've added a couple of high-waisted skirts to my wardrobe, and this just felt like the perfect, like, basic complementing tank, especially because I got a lot of like bright colored skirts. There we go, bright colored skirts, and the cream. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it. This is in the colorway Natural, in the Weird Knitters Cotton. So I felt like this like natural cream kind of color tank would just really pair nicely with everything. This was so fun and so quick to knit. I knit it in like, I don't know, maybe a week and a half. We went down on we took a road trip to go visit my husband's family, and so I pretty much knit this entire thing in the car on the way there, on the way back. It didn't take very long. Everybody else finished it rather quickly as well. And yeah, super fun. Really cool, like summer breezy, even though it's in a DK weight, having like the lace detailing, I think makes it a bit airy. And it is like, it's like more of a boxy shape, so it has a bit more positive ease too, so it doesn't like cling to your skin. But yeah, no, great little summer knit. Glad I did it. And I'm happy to have it in my wardrobe and to style it with some cute, flirty summer skirts. And yeah, that's it for Kurian Knit's first pattern. She also has a podcast here on YouTube that I would highly recommend. She is just so lovely to listen to. With that being said, I have here, we're going to move on to the whips now, but I have here my part of the yoke of my Kuutar Tee. All these light colors are having such a hard time picking up on camera today. So I am almost done with the lace section. I think I have maybe 5 more rows of lace knitting until I'm done with the yoke, or sorry, not the yoke, but done with the lace part. And I'm so excited. Like, watching this come together has been so motivating. It's one of these patterns where I'm just like, okay, one more row. I just want to keep seeing this pattern develop, and it's just so cool. And then I cannot wait to block it. I took a picture not too long ago of the progress I had at the time of like done on this shirt. So I'll add it somewhere, either here or here, we'll see. And you can have a look at it being kind of stretched out, and it's just easier to see. So it gave me a bit more of a better idea, because right now I'm knitting in on a smaller cord, so everything is just really scrunched together. So seeing it just like laying flat in that circular yoke like kind of shot made it really exciting and motivating to want to keep going on it. So yeah, it's been really fun. The chart looks way more complicated than what it actually is to knit, and it is like I think it's like a 60 row chart, so it's not something that can be memorized for, you know, the 60 rows down. However, it has many repeats, and so once you do a repeat once or twice around the yoke, it is easy to remember going forth for the rest of the round. Unlike, I don't think I mentioned it, but for the Sauble Tank by Kurian Knits, the lace pattern was so easy to remember and really fun to work. So you didn't have to, especially for when I was knitting in the car, I didn't have to go back and forth and like pull out patterns and pull out my phone, and like I could just knit semi-mindlessly, which is great. But yeah, so I'm super excited about this shirt. It isn't taking much longer to knit up than what I anticipated, but because I need to pay so much more attention to it, it's not one that I gravitate to as often. Lately, I've been working quite a bit, and so when I am home and I have some time to knit, usually it's, you know, after dinner, after our son's gone to bed, and like my husband and I will just sit down and like watch something. And so at those times I don't want to be knitting on something that I need to be focused on. So that's why I've been knitting a lot on this. And this, even though I started this Cumulus Tee, or this version of my Cumulus Tee after my Kuutar Tee, I finished it much quicker because it was just stockinette in the round. So I could do that without even paying attention as much to my knit and just relax. So it's one of those that I need to be in the right mood and the right frame of mind for. And lately life has been so hectic that it hasn't been the case, but I'm looking forward to getting back to it. And once I'm done those couple of rows of the lace pattern, it is essentially just going to be stockinette in the round. So I'll be able to hopefully breeze through that, and I'm really excited about it. So that's it for my Kuutar Tee. Next up, it's kind of a little secret project. So I'm knitting some mittens for my bestie, my gal pal. She's living in Italy, living her best life, and she asked me to knit her some mittens. So we went through, I sent her a bunch of patterns and we looked at a lot of different colorways together, and the ones that she landed on are, let me just check out the name. It's the Herringbone Mittens by, and I'm sorry, I am going to butcher the name, Ainur Berkimbayeva, which is a pattern written for Purl Soho. So it's a free pattern on Purl Soho's website. And here is a tiny bit. So this is my first time really doing color work, which has been super exciting. You can see, so this is the front of the mitten is in this herringbone pattern, and then the inside of the hand is in a pinstripe. There we go. So we decided to go with this charcoal and light gray. Most of the examples on the website are beautiful high contrast, like a neon pink and white, or an aubergine and white, or I think there's a yellow and white, which look beautiful, but we were thinking about it, and like if she's going to be using her hands a lot wearing these mittens, we didn't want the white to get dirty, and then since it's hand knit, to it's a bit more finicky to wash, so we just wanted it to be kind of like almost a tone on tone, like gray, where there is enough contrast that you can see the pattern, but you know, she could wear them and not have to wash them after every wear. So here they are. I'm knitting them in Asselin Leizu DK, which is I think it's 80% superwash merino, 20% silk. And these are the shades. I believe this is Épinette, and this one, I can't remember. I'll write it down in the description. I think it's something like smoky. So the Épinette is like a dark gray, and it has some green undertones to it, whereas the smoke one here, the light gray, has some purple undertones, which I find works so lovely together, and they have this kind of sheen to them as well. Anyway, they're knitting up beautifully. This is another one, kind of like the Kuutar Tee, where it's not a pattern I can work on when I'm not paying attention, because it is my first time doing color work on such a small scale that I really need to focus on it. But so far, I mean, my floats look pretty clean. Back, the front. I was really nervous about having the floats too wide, so especially at the front part, so that when she would put them on, that her fingers wouldn't get kind of caught through. But now that I'm at a part where there's a bit knit, I can sort of put my hand through it and it doesn't seem to be bothersome. So I'm really relieved. And yeah, I love how quickly this repeat is popping up. And I'm excited to get a little further on the mitten and to be able to give them to her. So she's coming to visit sometime in October, I believe, September or October. So hopefully, well, the deadline is by then to have these done and blocked and be able to gift them. So it is working fairly quickly. I just really need to take more time to sit down, focus, and work on these. And now that work is kind of calming down a little bit, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I work at an airport, and the summer months tend to be, you know, the busiest months for us. So now that we're going to be entering to fall soon, hopefully things are going to quiet down. Some people are taking vacation, or the pilots are taking vacation, so it's not as busy for us. That hopefully I'll have a bit more downtime or more breaks where I can work on these and just like crank them out. And I believe that's it for the herringbone, why is that so difficult to say today? For the herringbone mittens. Anyway, moving on. I feel like I'm talking so quickly today. And I don't know if it's the nerves because I haven't, you know, sat down in front of my phone to chit chat in so long. But I feel A, very excited to be here and to talk about my knits, and B, a little out of sorts where I feel like I'm missing something, or maybe I don't know what to say. So I'm sorry if this feels very chaotic or very maybe more fast-paced than how I usually am. I'm just, I guess, really excited to talk to you guys. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'm really excited to be here. And so I feel like I have all this energy kind of coming out faster than my brain is processing. I was gonna have a sip of coffee, but maybe that's not the right vibe right now, especially if I'm feeling a little excited and jittery. All right, so moving on, we've talked about the Kuutar Tee, we've talked about the mittens. Next up, I have I don't even know if I talked about, I did talk about this. I think I talked about this. So here I have my chunky brioche cardigan, chunky brioche jacket by Witre Designs from her book A Knitter's Year. So we've got the front and the back panels done with the side splits, and they're seamed at the shoulders. And I have one sleeve here that is knit with the cuff. All I need to do is seam at the underarm. So here she is. I think the last time we spoke, I only had like the bottom front panels before we join here at the, I guess, waist or hip. So, well, as I've said, like you kind of figure, I guess you would kind of figure out, it is a bottom-up construction. This is knit in Aran weight yarn held double to get this chunky brioche stitch. It is extremely squishy. It's knit on 10 millimeters for the body, and the cuffs and the like bottom and front like button panels will be also knit on the 5 millimeters. I'm knitting this in Léttlopi. I can't remember the colorway, but I'll have everything written down in the bottom description box. And so this is by far probably the scratchiest yarn that I've worked with, but it's been really fun. And I can already tell like this is going to be a lovely warm like autumn kind of jacket cardigan where I could wear this, you know, like in that in-between period before having to like jump into full-on coats in our cold Canadian climates. I just love, sorry, I'll just take a little minute for how the cuff is just the cutest little thing. I absolutely love here this kind of balloon gathering with a small cuff. I just find it adorable. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked by myself. So yeah, this is kind of it's kind of like gray, beige, grayish type of colorway with some little speckling of dark brown, almost black. I just wanted something really neutral for when I do wear this as a kind of like jacket, shacket situation. And I'm really excited about it. It is knitting up super duper quickly, but I have a feeling that once I've finished with the other sleeve and I get to all of the edges, I will slow down drastically. This has been so once I finish my Cumulus Tee, this has been the knit that I've been going to for my like bedtime knitting, I guess. Brioche just feels so meditative in that kind of dancing of the needles motion and super repetitive, and I can pretty much do it at this point without really looking. It's my third brioche project after the slippers that I'd made and my son's cardigan. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. And I'm like dying to make more brioche projects because it is just so fun, so meditative, and it's just a really nice motion, different motion for the hands, and it gives me a nice break from whatever other projects that I'm working on. Yeah. There's a lot of ums. Anyway, so this is her, this is she, and I just love the squishiness and I can't wait for it to be done. But I know I'm not in any rush since I know that realistically I won't be wearing this for another 2-3 months. Yeah, and I'm enjoying the slow pace of like having it to do it, like having it to knit just bit by bit at nighttime. Anyway, so yeah, my chunky brioche cardigan. And last but not least, we have, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, Cami number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I am knitting this in Cascade. Ooh. Do I have the stickers with me? I believe it was Cascade Heritage. I think it's Cascade Heritage. I'll have to check it out. Don't know where I put my labels, but Cascade Heritage in a navy blue colorway, and it is a 80% super wash, 80% super wash merino and 20% nylon, which is going, so I'm planning on having it as a kind of like under a linen shirt kind of cami situation. Since it is in merino, like I know it's going to be warm, but I want it as more of a layering piece in the fall winter months, where I can have it under a button down. This is my second time starting this project. The first time I started knitting it in Finley Creek's Juniper Moon Farms Finley Creek yarn, which is a light fingering, like almost lace, and like a ball of it is about 750 meters, which is the recommended meterage or yardage for my size. But as I was knitting it, it was just, the fabric was so see-through and light, so I put it aside, and I will eventually make it again. I'm making it in I think it's in a cream colorway with that yarn. I put it aside, and my plan is to go to my local yarn store and buy another ball of it and hold it double. And then I think I'll have the right weight for it to not be completely see-through. But I was really excited about casting it on because I had so much fun knitting it at the beginning that I wanted to keep going on it. So I put it aside and I got out my Cascade Heritage and caked it up and started it on that. And so far the fabric is much denser. Here, let me take it out again. Yeah, so the fabric is much denser as it looks see-through here. I am sitting in front of a window, so it's probably not helping my case, but like if I have my hand behind, you can't really see it, right? Yeah. So I feel like this is probably a bit more appropriate. And I love this navy color. but it is making it really difficult to knit, especially like around nighttime. So this is more of a daytime knit because I'm so paranoid, especially with how it is fingering weight yarn, so with how thin the yarn is and how dark it is. I'm so paranoid that I'm going to miss a stitch and then the whole thing will unravel. And I mean, what's the worst? I start again and rip it back a few rows. I know it's not that big of a deal, but I want my knitting to be a, you know, relaxing experience. And if I'm stressed out while I'm knitting it, then I'm not meeting my goal. So that's another one, kind of like in the same boat as the Kuutar Tee, where I needed to be the right conditions to want to pick it up. And that's it for my current active whips. I was talking about it with a friend. She asked me how many whips I had, and I was like, oh, you know, just a few. And then I started counting, and I think I had like probably a dozen, but a lot of those are just lingering whips that I haven't picked up in a while for X reason. I've been participating in a bunch of test knits, or I've been participating in a few test knits lately. So first I had the Sari Nordlund's Sunset Cami, and then I had Kurian Knit's Sauble Tank, and now I just got picked for the Edgar Slipover by Colibri by Johanna, which I'm so excited to get started on. We're driving to see my in-laws again this weekend, so I'll be getting started on it in the car, and we'll see how it goes, but really, really excited. It's beautiful, clean slip over with some twisted rib edges along the shoulders and down the sides and the bottom, so really excited about that. And yeah, so with all these test knits being on deadlines and having to prioritize those, my other projects, they've been put aside for a while, but I'm happy to kind of return to them now and get those going. So I think that's it for all the projects we have at the moment. I have some yarn acquisitions, but not too many. I've been really trying to make a point of not purchasing more yarn than I need. I was going through my stash and reorganizing the other day to, actually I believe is when I was getting my Cascade heritage yarn out. I was trying to find it, and so I ended up reorganizing my stash so everything would be a bit more clearly separated, and realized like I have more than enough yarn to probably get me through the next like year of knitting. Really, it's not gotten out of hand, but it's been a lot. So I'm trying to keep a clean space, to keep a clean mind. And so I've been slowing down on my yarn acquisitions, which has been so hard because there's so many beautiful yarns. So I'll start with what I bought for myself. So on my last road trip to see my in-laws, when I was knitting the Sauble Tank, we stopped for lunch at this little cafe in a town called Tweed, Ontario, which I thought was just so fitting. And as we were paying, I look over and there's a little shelf by the side with, you know, creamers and sugars for coffee. And on the lower shelf was a basket with skeins of yarn. And so I went over and I got a couple, and you can see it still has like little twigs and bits of grass. This is like straight from a farm here in Ontario. I believe it's from a little town called I don't even know if it's little. It's from a town called Fergus in Ontario, and it's in southwest Ontario, so like west of Toronto. So still local farm to us compared to, you know, most of the yarns that I purchase, but so it's not labeled. I took a picture of the basket had a label on it saying what farm this was from, but there's no information on the meterage or the like weight of the yarn. So the ends here are pretty fibrous, but like I believe it's a single ply. It does seem plied, like there is some twist to it. And like just looking at it compared, yeah, it's definitely single ply. Just looking at it compared to other yarns, it is pretty thick. I would say probably thicker than Erin, closer to a worsted or like chunky yarn. So I'm not sure how much I would have in these two skeins, but I hope that I have enough for maybe a vest or some kind of accessory, or maybe I'm going to hold on to it and get some other yarn, like maybe some Léttlopi. Yeah, Léttlopi, and do some kind of color work sweater. I think that might be the vibe, because it is very rustic. It's still very soft, but it is definitely rustic, and I think it would just be such a nice way to honor it in like a more rustic type color work, like a classic color work sweater. So uncertain plans, which usually I buy yarn with intention of having like a certain pattern already assigned to it. But we were at a small cafe selling small producer yarn, and I just felt like encouraging the local economy, so sue me. So this is my local to me yarn that I'm really excited about. I'll have to find something really special for it. So if you have any recommendations, actually, let me know. I've been looking at the Petite Knitter, who is a knitter from Iqaluit in Northern Canada. And she has so many beautiful colorwork projects. So I'm thinking I might be using one of her patterns. I'll see if I have anything, she has anything that would meet the gauge for this, but I think that's the direction I'm going with. I think it would just be so full circle and beautiful to use Canadian wool and knit a Canadian designer's pattern. So yeah, so that's that for that. Next up, I also went to Montreal recently to go visit family, and I went to a yarn store that had just opened next to my mom's house. So I picked up these mini skeins of fingering weight, 5 mini skeins of 20 grams fingering weight, 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon. This is dyed by L'Hélène Simple Sorcière Yarn Company. So you can go see her stuff on, here you go, simplesorcière.com. And so I have no specific like sock pattern for these yet, but I'm sure I'll find something in line as 52 weeks of socks. So that's one option. Another option, I recently got the pattern for Emily Curtis's, or you might know her as Gently Chaotic Knits, stripy turtle tank. And so I have these, and I have a couple of other small singles that I think would be a really great combination. They just, maybe that's the mood. We'll see. I've got time to think on it. There's no rush in using these. As it is, I just really enjoy looking at them, and I really love this kind of flowery ribbon. And the way it's all just kind of tied together. It feels like kind of rusticy, farmhouse type packaging. I don't know, it's something that it just really calls to me and appeals to me, and I really love it. So that's it for my mini skeins. All right, I had to run out for a quick errand, but I'm back. And so when I left off, I was about to talk to you about some skeins that I was gifted by my lovely friend, who had prepared a little package for me for once I finished my qualification at work. She got me a bunch of little bits and bobs, and But what I'm going to talk to you about today are the two skeins she gifted me. So the first one here is this Koigu yarn, and I hadn't heard of them before, but they are Canadian from, I believe, Manitoba. And just, so this yarn, hi Shelly. So that's my cat. So this yarn here is hand painted and in just the most beautiful like jewel tones of violet and blue with little bits here and there of kind of copper peeking through. It's absolutely stunning and is so soft. So it's 100% merino wool in fingering weight. And I don't know yet what I'm going to make with this, but I'm saving it for something special for sure. And then the second one, which I've been dying to try for the longest time, Spin Cycles, dyed in the wool, and this is the Knitting Lofts, which is a yarn store in Toronto. This is their special made colorway, which is After Midnight. So a 100% superwash American wool, and it's just in these like kind of like mossy green, blues and grays with like little pops of pink here and there. There we go. It's just so stunning. And so I was thinking of what I could do with this project, and Andrea Mowry released her tessellated vest and pullover, and I would have enough of this yarn to make the vest. So I'm wondering if that's the move for this one. I think the vest requires 3 different types of yarn. There's 1 skein of dyed in the wool, a couple skeins of a sport weight yarn for the main color, and then for the last contrast color, she actually used Moondrake's Fua Fua, which you might remember I've talked about and used in my Meet Me at Midnight pullover. So I'm thinking that might be the combination. I don't have any more of the Fua Fua, but I really enjoyed knitting with it, and it is super special. And I think it would be really cool to use that in combination with this. So that might be the plan. We'll see. I'm not committed to it yet, but I think it would just be such a great project to put this in like the limelight, I guess, in the spotlight, let it shine, as well as the Fua Fua. And just like, I love that, like on the outside of the skein, it doesn't seem like there's that much pink, but when you look inside, there seems to be a bit more, which I'm really stoked about. I just love the green and pink kind of combination. I'm so excited to knit this up and see it just color change in front of my eyes. And so that's how we'll close this podcast out for today. Thank you so much for joining me. It's good to be back, and hopefully it won't be that long of a period between podcasts going forward. But like I said, like we are in the process of moving, so it's been pretty hectic these days. There's a lot going on, so this hasn't been my top priority, but I am very much missing it and missing chatting with you guys and chatting about the projects that I'm working on and hearing your ideas and comments and feedback. So yeah, hopefully not as long between podcasts for the next one. I wish you all a wonderful day, and